Okay, so I'm making this very brief intro to say that if you want the backstory for why Kim slash For Harriet made this video, you've got to watch my last video where I explain it. Originally, it was all one video, but combining them made this already long video way too long. Okay, now on to the video.
Hey y'all, how are you doing? I'm great. Thank you so much for asking. It's me, Kim, and I'm back. Sorry about what happened earlier. Sometimes my phone does a weird thing and the comments weren't working. It's a whole thing, but let me rewind. So I have taken a second to do this video because I did not want to respond in anger. Well, I didn't want to respond publicly in anger. As I mentioned earlier, I have been quite angry and messy on Patreon. That's why you should be a Patreon member. But I thought that if I was going to take this conversation public, then I should get some notes together so that I can lay it all out in a way that I would not be embarrassed by. Because I don't want to let myself down and I don't want to let y'all down. So let's talk about the situation. A couple of weeks ago, I did an interview with two young Black women named Candace and Danielle. And, you know, I moved to Dallas, right? And so they are local activists in Dallas, and they're two 20-year-old women. And we had a conversation about their activism and their political ideologies and their feminism and all that. And I asked them about trans women. And I asked them about why their political activism is inclusive of trans women. And they gave the most perfect answer, like an answer I couldn't have scripted better. So I clipped out their little answer and I put it on Instagram.
Okay, hey, so this is my first chime in slash interruption to say that I think earlier I said that she uploaded that clip to Twitter, but clearly I was wrong. She said Instagram. So I just wanted to say that I haven't watched this video in a while, and I did the intro part like in order, like I did that already before I rewatch this video, before I'm doing this right now. So yeah, and I mean, what I can say so far is I guess I'm a little dubious about what that perfect answer these young activists gave could be, because I've never come across one. But I need to say I haven't seen it. I haven't seen their answer, and I didn't see this Instagram exchange. But anyway, that's really all I wanted to say.
And under that Instagram post where these two 20-year-old Black girls were talking about why it was so important for them to be trans inclusive in their activism, why when they are out marching and protesting and making signs that they are intentionally making space for and inviting trans women in. There were so many nasty comments under that video. Nasty comments about, well, we're cis women, we're biological women. Why should biological women have to care about trans women? You're being a mammy, you're being a mule. Biological women have rights too.
Okay, so I guess I am going to interrupt a little more than I imagined I would. I just want to say, though, that I don't think that comments about centering yourself or your identity, your specific type of people, and maybe taking issue with including male people in your fight, your activism, I don't think that's nasty. I don't think that is nasty. Calling you names is nasty, but yeah, so I had to disagree with that. I can imagine a version of things where, I mean, because I was this and I mean, I personally am, I mean, I guess I'm working through these feelings right now still, or more than ever, but before I used to do it unthinkingly, uh, fighting with and for GNC men, uh, which it feels very right to me, so I, in that way, wouldn't mind including men in my activism. Um, but I also really understand people, especially black women, black dark-skinned women, but like black women in general, uh, wanting to finally put a foot down, so to speak, and, you know, prioritize just themselves. Um, because there is a pattern of black women kind of being the fighters for so many groups other than their own, and that fighting is not directly reciprocated. So it's very understandable for black women to be triggered, to be bothered by being asked to prioritize yet another group, in this case male people, uh, when they have so, as a group, have so little power. Um, it's kind of a big ask of the most marginalized, this double minority of a group, you know. So again, just all that to say, I don't think that's nasty. Anyway, yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
It's like, bitch, get out of here.
Okay, so just wanted to chime in again to say how particularly disappointing that was, because I personally have a very strong irritation and sensitivity to misogynistic slurs. I slightly grant that, you know, the people who the slur is aimed against have a right to, like, reclaim it, but that was used in a, obviously, in an insulting way, and it's just like, I don't know, it's just such an ugly thing to do, and it's like extra irritating and sad and heartbreaking that she would like use this misogynistic slur against women because of men she has more empathy for. That, I mean, it's always irritating when women use it, and I know like plenty of gender crits use misogynistic slurs, but it's extra infuriating, annoying, telling of where our society is with how people subconsciously view women, when a woman can say that about women to protect men, to protect male people, because she's so angry at male people being designated male people. That's absurd. It's extra absurd. It's extra offensive. So, yeah, but I know, just in general, a lot of people on both sides, all sides, are very comfortable with misogynistic slurs, which is an issue. It's a problem. It's because there's no other type of slur that gets the pass like that, which I think is so indicative of how even the left views women, where, you know, there's no way, there's no scenario where it's acceptable for an outsider, and I know Kim's not an outsider, but just to explain this just a little bit, why I feel this way, there's no scenario where it's okay for an outsider to use homophobic slurs, you know. Even gay people get, like, I don't know, kind of a side eye when they use F-bombs, but, you know, people get it if they do, mostly. And then there's no, I mean, I know the right will certainly defend people using racial slurs, but the mouthpieces of the right aren't going to really make a defense for someone who uses them currently, because I'm, of course, thinking most recently of Joe Rogan, because, you know, they'll defend him all day and say it's his past. And I do speculate that if he just started to own it and say, I'm just gonna use it, I do think a significant portion of the right would like follow and go, yeah, we should be able to. But still, even then, that is a racial slurs are taken seriously, and they will get you officially removed, like by the powers that be, from any platform, from most even right-wing organizations. If you're just dropping N-bombs, K-bombs, any kind of slurred bombs, racial slur or homophobic, it's treated seriously for the most part, you know. But that is not the same with gendered, with misogynistic slurs, and there's no logical argument for why. Like, what are you gonna tell me? Women were not treated as badly as gay people were? Like, women were not only historically oppressed, but they continue to be oppressed today. I mean, so do gay people, so do black people. But I'm saying that is a shared thing. But it's not honored, it's not respected, because I think subconsciously most people, even left-leaning people, don't respect women. There's a certain level of just, there's no reverence for the things that are hurtful to women. There's no reverence for disrespecting women. There's no like fear of it, and I mean, so I just wanted to say that.
Right? First of all, I don't even know how y'all even get to For Harriet. How y'all get to this space? Y'all know where I stand. Y'all know what it is. This is a space for all women. Cisgender, heterosexual, queer, trans, everybody.
Except that she's ejecting women from this space who believe that women should have a biological and coherent definition. So clearly not all women, and clearly men, are more welcomed when they identify as what they can't ever possibly be. Very frustrating, very heartbreaking, very sad.
So I don't know how you get to the For Harriet YouTube, how you get to the For Harriet Instagram trying to say that transphobic shit.
So I do believe I explained how I found For Harriet. I think I did. It was recommended. I liked her content, thought she made great points a lot of the time, and agreed with her a lot, even though I did find early on that she was a TRA when she made this video about Chimamanda Adichie. Yeah, and I didn't agree. And yeah, but she says other stuff, and there's still a shared sort of shared beliefs, shared ideologies in other ways, and shared general goals. So I don't know. To me, that's like still worth pursuing, and it's just wild that that is the breaking point or the cutoff point in who she's willing to like be in community with, as they say, is like just this, others believing that women should have a coherent definition, and that it's reasonable for a word, any word it could be at this point, to exist to describe female humans, that's specific to humans. That's a crazy reason to say you shouldn't be here. I don't want you here.
So I'm on the For Harriet Instagram page. Follow us on Instagram. And I am seeing the responses to these young black women who are so funny, and they are thoughtful, and they have their shit together in a way that I did not have my shit together when I was 20 years old. And I was angry about the level of hate that people were spewing in those comments.
Okay, well, I do have to question what she's considering hate, because, I mean, I guess I got a sense of the kinds of comments she considers hate when she did that like mocking voice of the commenters. But you know, the insults, the name calling, it's mean, but I think she'd consider, I mean, it's pretty reasonable to assume given her stance, that she'd consider calling a male human a man hate, which is absurd. It's not. That's not being said out of hatred. Calling a woman a man often is, the way Michelle Obama was, but calling men men is not hateful. It's women having the chutzpah to stand up for themselves, because a lot of women, most women in my experience, are conditioned to be very compliant in the face of men, and would be compliant regarding men's demands and care too much about men's feelings. And so it's a very big thing when a woman can put her foot down and say, no, this is not okay. I'm not gonna not acknowledge your maleness. I'm not gonna call you anything but what you literally are. A man is a male human, a male adult human. That's what you are. I'm gonna call you that, not as an insult, but just, well, to acknowledge what you are, and in doing so distinguish you from what I am. So that's not done out of hate. And to just label anything that is upsetting to a person with mental health issues as hate is really unfair and is wrong, illogical. It's not accurate. That's not hateful.
So I went to my Twitter page. And I don't know what the real tweets are, but I said, I'm really tired of transphobic black women. Don't y'all understand that disrupting normative gender works in our best interest? Don't y'all understand that deconstructing the gender binary, the white supremacist gender binary, works in our favor?
Okay, so I'm not exactly sure what she means when she says disrupting normative gender works in our best interest. I'd say fighting back, pushing back against gender roles to a certain degree, yes, that's good. And just in the way of letting people be free individually, letting people express how they want, even when it defies gender norms, yes. Men wearing dresses earnestly, not James Franco style, when he and Anne Hathaway hosted the Oscars. I remember that rubbed me in such a wrong way, and I felt like he was making a mockery of men who want to do that honestly and seriously. But yeah, okay, so that is good, but disrupting gender, normative gender, because that sounds like it could mean disrupting normative sex, like sex categorization. That's not good. That's not even, that wouldn't be rooted in anything logical. That wouldn't be rooted in anything real. That would be, in a way, reinforcing sexism. And then she says that disrupting the white supremacist gender binary works in our favor, and that's just wholly absurd. It's just so, what are you talking about? Adding males to the female sex category does not benefit anyone but males. What are you saying? What is this big picture you're having? So males join the female category, and then what who is liberated here? What good is that, to just lie, to say that our dimorphic species is not dimorphic, is a species where the penis having people are actually the vagina having people if they feel it in their soul. How is that helpful? How is that good or sensible or revolutionary? I mean, I guess in a sense it's revolutionary in that it's incredibly loudly defiant of something, but in this case it's defiant of reality, not white supremacy. I don't see how that would even help to fight white supremacy. Like saying that someone like Leah Thomas, who is white and a male, can now go and compete with female people, with women, and dominate them. How? What are you talking about? Like, how is that helpful? How is that good? Who is that useful for, other than men? Like, what? This is so. I would love an explanation of how, of the like big picture of how that destroys white supremacy and how that helps everyone, the people, when male people can just say they're female people. Like what? And white people did not make up the two types of humans. One needs to make more humans. Like everyone, every race, every culture gave a name to those humans, because they observed them naturally. That when a vagina having human is born, from a vagina having human, that is a consistent and specific type of human. They gave that type of human a name. In English, it's woman, it's girl. And when a penis having human, who would father, or who would contribute his sperm to make a new human, would and when that new human was also a penis haver, in this culture, in English speaking cultures, the name for that type of human was boy, is man when he's of mature age. And so you saying, or you positing that this ability to distinguish sexes is white supremacy is so unintentionally, I guess, insulting to every non-white race. Do you think that like Africans and Asians and Arab, Middle Eastern people and every other type of people could not figure out, had no concept of male and female and giving those two types names until whites came along and told them? Like, what are you saying?
There is no real reason to be transphobic.
There is no real reason to use language that distinguishes males from females. There is no real reason, women, to be wary of men.
It's good old-fashioned bigotry. Good old-fashioned.
Bigotry is to be intolerant of people who hold different opinions than you do. So that actually much more accurately describes TRAs like Kim than gender critical people, because usually gender critical people are the ones who want to have a conversation, who want to find common ground and a compromise, something like, trans-identified males and trans-identified females having their own spaces, stuff like that. And it's you, TRAs, trans rights activists, who are overwhelmingly, at least the most vocal of you, unwilling to have a conversation, who label anyone who is even wanting to have a conversation this like almost like non-human evil type of entity. It's so extreme. That is bigotry personified. That's exactly what TRAs are a lot of the time. So, watch who you're calling a bigot, because it more aptly describes you, Kim. And, women wanting their own spaces they fought for, it's so reasonable. It's such a logical thing to want, and it's a literal need to have those spaces separate from men, from male people. That's not bigotry. Like, sexed spaces, it's not bigotry. And wanting to maintain them is not bigotry. And people putting their foot down or just being the type to say, this, these two humans are not the same, and for very logical reasons they need separate spaces, is not bigotry.
Because trans women ain't trying to hurt you. Please.
I don't think trans-identified males, for the most part, are trying to hurt anyone, but they are. When you are asking as a man to be put in the woman category, there are many ways that will hurt women if you are allowed. It already has. And then just in the more general sense, it's exactly like you were saying, men aren't trying to hurt anyone. I mean, yeah, I would hope most men, I don't know, these days, aren't trying to hurt anyone, but we all know men hurt women and each other all the time. Like, just I mean that in just reference to how men are, how do I say this, more prone to violence. There are certain patterns of male violence that men are able to and do enact. There's a trans-identified male who sexually violated his mother. That's a very male pattern style violence. So acting like, removing trans-identified males from male violence patterns is one thing, but then also it seems TRAs try to paint people who are male, if they identify as female, as women, that paint them as these human types who can do no wrong, and to be wary of them is a phobia, which is just absurd. Like, because most of these same people will say, being wary of men is okay, being wary of cis men, they would say, is okay, but being wary of trans-identified males isn't. Because why? Is there some study I'm unaware of where it found people who identify as women who are male, or people, I mean, it's going to be the same thing, but I want to rephrase that as people who are male who identify as male are this level of violent, but people who are male and identify as female are significantly less violent? Is there a study that says that? Because if there isn't, then what are you rooting this idea that they're safer to be around for women? Because there's just no acknowledging their violence patterns being comparable to male violence patterns because they are male, and that's very unsafe to do. It's like next level gaslighting to tell women you can be cautious around men who identify as men, but if a man identifies as a woman, you should accept that, I don't know, that he can't be violent with you, he can't harm you in the ways that men who identify as men can. What?
They're not trying to take anything from you.
They actually are, though. Even outside of women's spaces, like prisons and sports categories, they're trying to take away women's ability to refer to themselves specifically and uniquely. They're trying to take away women's ability to name what they are and discuss the shared universal experience they have with half the world with appropriate language.
Trans women are trying to live. trying to get employment, trying not to be discriminated against in healthcare.
If that's all they were doing, I don't think that you would be making this video. There wouldn't be so much pushback if that's all they were doing.
So the idea that somehow you are fundamentally or materially harmed by the kind of work that cisgender Black women should do to make sure that our spaces are welcome for all Black women is bullshit.
Nope. Seeing the harm in male-centering women like you, making women feel obliged to work to make males feel more comfortable in female spaces or conversations is not bullshit. Black women should never be made to feel like mules for males. No woman should.
That shit pisses me off. And that shit is rooted fundamentally in white supremacist ethics.
Okay, it's very unfortunate and disappointing and deeply disturbing, honestly, that women having boundaries pisses you off, but that doesn't make you right. Your anger isn't rational. Neither is your claim that the ability for humans to distinguish male humans from female humans is rooted in white supremacist ethics.
And I said that. And I said, I don't know why y'all are spending your time being transphobic when it would help you enormously by rejecting those white supremacist ideals, by rejecting the white supremacist construction of gender, which has resulted in a binary that excludes women of different that excludes different gender presentations, non-normative gender. Why are you doing that?
If those quote-unquote white supremacist ideals are that giving a name to penis-having humans is wrong, and giving a name to vagina-having humans is also wrong, and that these two types of humans don't need names, don't need to be distinguished, then no, that is not helpful for anyone. And then it sounds like you sort of clarify what you meant by non-normative gender. It seems like you were referring to gender presentation, but gender is best used as a synonym for sex. That's the least sexist way to use it anyway. And when you're talking about gender presentation and overhauling it and white supremacist ideals limiting gender presentation or gender expression, it's like you don't, well, it's not like you don't understand somehow that co-signing this notion that males can be females, or that, gender non-conforming men are actually women. That's the opposite direction of where you're trying to go. That's backwards. That's the opposite of progressive. That's reinforcing those ideals. That's reinforcing sexism, to tell the boy who likes dresses that he's a girl. It's like cooperative bullying. I think I mentioned this in my very first video about this on this channel. To have this new philosophy or ethic or whatever you want to call it, of telling those little boys who would get bullied, or those little girls who would get bullied, little girl with a short haircut being called a boy, a little boy who likes to express himself in dresses when he plays dress up, and he genuinely likes that, even though he knows that's not normal and that's not socially acceptable. The direction we should have gone in is normalizing it more and more, that girls can look like whatever as long as they're female, and that's the only requirement. But girlhood can look like whatever, womanhood can look like whatever, and same with manhood and boyhood. But you're saying to those kids, or co-signing this norm of saying to those kids, that the old bullies who would have said, haha, to the girl, Jessica looks like a boy, or Jessica's a boy, she cut her hair, Or, David is a girl, he's wearing dresses, or he painted his nails. You're like saying, like once upon a time, the instinct, and for me and a lot of gender critical people, the instinct is, no, he's not a girl because he likes dresses. Like, anyone can wear a dress. Did his skin melt when he put it on? Like, dresses are for anyone. So you can't take his boyhood, his boyness, his maleness away because of the clothes he's wearing, because of the way he acts, even because he likes boys. None of that takes away that he is a boy. But now your type of activists are saying, well, you know what, little bullying Kyle over there, maybe he is, or maybe they are a girl. We don't know yet. I guess actually that is a sign that he might be a girl, because he likes to wear dresses. You're like, you're so backwards in your beliefs, and you don't even realize it, that you are like encouraging this cooperative new bullying style.
So I made a little thread. And then the femininity people took one tweet out of a thread that was fundamentally about transphobia and said, "You don't believe black women can be feminine? How dare you say that femininity belongs to white women?" That's not what the fuck I said. That's not what I said. And you intentionally misrepresented my idea to fit your agenda. So let me go through what I said and what it means. And just let's take a little bit more time to fully flesh out those ideas. So first of all, I'm gonna say that I don't watch Chrissie's videos. They're not even recommended to me. I don't watch femininity videos. I can't even think of the last time. So when people are making the accusation that those tweets were a response to Chrissie's videos, I don't know. It ain't. It's not even on my radar.
Obvious lie is obvious, but let's move on.
So YouTube knows I'm not fucking with it. I'll also say that I do not apologize for anything that I've said in public or private. I don't take it back, not one word. You are free to disagree with me. You are free to unfollow. You are free to unsubscribe. It's okay, right? I'm not for everybody. All the other creators are not for me. We will all be okay. My job is not to say things that everybody is gonna like. My responsibility is to say things that I believe are right. And I did a couple of days ago delete all my tweets, not because I take back any of those ideas, but because the level of harassment that I have been receiving over the past few days is insane. It is off the charts. But mostly I deleted all my tweets because first of all, I've done it many times over the years. But with regard to that situation, I was embarrassed by the amount of time I spent going back and forth with anonymous transphobic trolls who intentionally misrepresented my ideas. That's embarrassing to me. The fact that I could not exercise restraint in blocking people and moving on, that I gave them that much time and emotional energy, that makes me feel bad. Because nobody who I argued with over those couple of days was worth it. Not at all. It brought me down in a way, it was so unproductive. And I should have done better. That being said, Black people have been disagreeing with each other in public for a long time. That is the benefit of studying history. You know that those beefs go way back. Garvey and Du Bois, Garvey and Booker T. Washington, Ida B. Wells was getting into, it's a thing, right? And so all Black people, when they are trying to do work in service of Black people, we don't always have to be on the same page. It's fine. Thankfully, I've constructed my life in a way where all of this, trolling and the back and forth and the message board stuff, that does not impact my bottom line. It does not impact the quality of my life. As people still trolling me like, you caused all of this stress for yourself. And it's like, girl, if y'all only knew that Kimberly's life is the best it's ever been, if y'all only, I wish y'all could be. I wish that every Black woman could be as content as I am right now. Because I have had real problems. Like real breaking down, crying, breaking down in Whole Foods problems. This is not it. All right, so let's get to the femininity stuff. The first thing that I'm going to say is across time and space, womanhood is not a monolith. It means and has meant lots of different things.
Okay, so this point is debatable, but like even if we grant that womanhood has meant lots of different things, it's never meant man, though. It's never meant male human, unless someone was being mean, unless someone was insulting a man or trying to lower his status, but it's never seriously, and certainly not scientifically, included males, ever, anywhere. So this is not even a good argument for what she's trying to say. Because womanhood has always been another name in English for the female adult experience, not the male one.
It has presented itself lots of different ways. So if you are a Black woman and you are stuck on thinking that womanhood has to look one way for it to be legitimate, you're doing yourself and your history a disservice. Because that's simply not true.
Okay, so that is a good argument for those misguided and, quite frankly, sexist femininity people who reject and are very mean to women who don't participate or aren't interested in stereotypical or traditional presentations of femininity, or like expressing that themselves. That is where that argument works, and that is where the womanhood looks like different things. But this is, for me, this is fundamentally a trans debate. And so, yes, I agree, womanhood can and should look like whatever, so, and manhood as well. But it still requires and can only be experienced by a specific sex. That's the issue. That's the main point of contention here. And I know that there are femininity people, and especially because they're femininity people, they're more inclined to be sexist. But yeah, I know that there are femininity people who are very, if I got my way more, if there were a bunch of like contrapoints in cat blacks, like, oh yeah, I'm a man, but this is how I prefer to present, and this is just how I'm comfortable, there would be so this is why the right is so annoying, because they would be the first to bully them and say, like, you're not a man, look at you, how do you expect me to call you a man? They would absolutely 180 everything they're saying about, you can't consider yourself a woman. That's the stupidity of the right. And I know that there are probably even left-leaning people, especially the femininity types and certainly the male lefties, but I don't know. But for the ones we're talking about, let's say femininity people, there would certainly be femininity people on the left and the right who are like, who would mock the butch women of the world, who would mock the socially feminine men of the world, absolutely. And those people are the ones, ideally, we would both be united against and be decrying that kind of behavior together, but also decrying things that reinforce that kind of belief, like trans ideology, which reinforces those sexist expression barriers and reinforces those sexist presentation expectation barriers, when they're always gender non-conforming men who are told by people like you that they are women for being gender non-conforming. That's And vice versa with women who are gender non-conforming, being told that they're men, or being agreed with that because they're socially unfeminine, they're men. You help unwomanize them. You help unman these men just because they're GMC. And that's the problem. And you're participating it even though you think you're destroying it.
The next thing I'll say is that if your movement endorses the denigration of Black women who are poor, disabled, trans,
Men,
queer, masculine, sexual, uneducated, can't grow hair, fat, or ugly, then I'm not fucking with it. Your movement is anti-Black. Your movement is rooted in white supremacist ideals. So let's call a thing a thing.
So I'm not aware specifically of any femininity channels by Black women anyway. Because, like, I think maybe Abby Shapiro's channel could be considered a femininity channel. And it's all of the things she listed. But I don't know of any by Black people, and she is specifying Black women, that denigrates that word, that denigrates women of any of those categories. And when I say women, I am referring to women. You can look it up if you're not sure what I mean. But even men who are socially feminine or gender non-conforming men, I don't know of any that denigrate them. I will assume they exist, even though I know Kim's idea of denigration and being disrespectful or mean or hateful would probably, in the case of trans ideology and people who identify as trans, differ from mine. But even the few I've seen, they don't disrespect trans-identified males. They just don't include them or center them. And so, I may truly be ignorant of ones that they're of femininity content creators, Black femininity content creators who are just really truly insulting to those types of women and gender non-conforming men. But the ones I know of are not. So this is, what she doesn't fuck with is just what it sounds. You see, this is because I did mention earlier that these are the issues that Black lib femmes are having with the femininity people. The promoting a healthy diet, promoting education, and the ones I'm aware of, they're not disrespectful about it. They don't put down uneducated women. Ironically, Kim puts down constantly, since this video, before this video, I learned, people who are not as educated as her. She does she really leans into the snob thing a lot, and so it's really weird for her to try and say, I don't fuck with you if you look down on uneducated women, but you act like you look down at uneducated women all the time. So I don't know if that's straight up hypocrisy, or if she just has another idea of what it is to look down on someone or denigrate someone. But I feel like she's really inconsistent, and often, since this happened, often hypocritical. I don't know. It's just telling women that it's good to, be healthy and lose weight when black women are disproportionately affected by weight-related health issues is labeling that denigration or mean is so absurd. I've never, who is being nasty to disabled women.
Now, I'm gonna take some responsibility here, because something that I can be better at is making sure that I underscore when I'm talking about ideas, that I make sure to make it clear that a lot of good and smart people embrace bad ideas. The disagreements that we have don't have to be personal, right? I can say, hey, you saying some bullshit, but that doesn't mean, it's not fuck you. But the ideas are still bad. So let's talk about some of those bad ideas. In the Western world, there was a political need to construct an ideal of femininity that was a thin white woman, upper class, non-sexual, subordinate to men, fragile, delicate, cisgender, demure wife and mother, Google cult of domesticity, Google cult of womanhood. And that ideal was constructed to keep white women in their place and to prop up white male power. Now, conversely, black women were represented as the opposite of that, so that we could keep being raped, abused, tortured, overworked. We are unwomen. If you've read Handmaid's Tale, unwomen. We are non-women.
Okay, but see, Kim, just like the handmaidens from A Handmaid's Tale, black women were not actually unwomen or non-women. As outside of men, those aren't real things within our species. Black women were always women, so even experienced enslavement in ways that black men did not and could not. Wicked males like J.M. Sims, aka the monster of gynecology, made sure of that. It's interestingly like a reverse type of transgender ideology that you're subscribing to, where you're deciding what a thing is still not based on the facts of what they actually are, but this time not based on what they say they are either. This time you seem to have decided that it's based on your interpretation of what racists say they are. I don't even buy that most truly believed that black women weren't women. You don't terrorize and rape and procreate with and forbid from learning to read fellow mammals because you truly think that they're not human, or that the female half aren't females that are of your kind in some way. Racism is an extreme dominance power play by the profoundly callous and joyously evil. I don't know if it's a wiring thing or what, but many white people just feel a sort of glee in terrorizing and torturing and having power over other people. It seems like it's always been that way. Regardless, the fact remains that black women are adult human females, no matter how they're treated or what crazy, sadistic, racists say or do. They have the same chromosomes dictating their sex and all that naturally comes with being their sex as every other woman on the planet, and they always have. Like even if all of America came together to say that Mark Zuckerberg was of the feline species, meaning we should call him a cat instead of a human, and meaning that he should therefore be harmed because cats are just, I don't know, hated and deserved terrorism and mistreatment for some reason, he wouldn't ever actually be a cat.
And many times since emancipation, black women have tried to say, we're not that. You've got it all wrong. No, we actually can be demure and subordinate, and we can be that ideal. You're mistreating us because you think we're not women, but we actually are that.
Okay, your example of black women trying to prove themselves as women by arguing, I guess with white people, that they actually are demure and actually are subordinate seems wrong and inaccurate, because black women coming out of enslavement, existing in the most subordinate position possible after black children, would not have felt this need to prove to white people or men how subordinate they are. As for demure, which is essentially to be modest or shy, the issue here is the misogyny in the very social demand of women to play demure. Being demure is not what ever made any woman a female adult human. And the social act of punishment for let's say white women who weren't or aren't demure enough isn't an act of no longer seeing her as an adult human female. The wrath that such women get is literally rooted in seeing them as adult human females who aren't acting in a way that benefits men and that misogynists prefer. It's rooted in misogyny and patriarchal desire to control women. Meanwhile, the social punishment for being a woman while brown is not at all rooted in not being an adult human female, aka a woman. It's rooted in irrational racist minds causing your brown skin to add a sullied perception of your existence. And that false perception, combined with being the most vulnerable and unprotected type of adult human female, caused misogyny and racism, so misogynoir, to join forces in certain minds to justify treating black women in really harsh and exploitive ways, and honestly in ways that they often seem to wish that they could get away with treating all women, if not for the retribution they'd face from her male family. That's why black women were uniquely positioned as the maids and nannies and wet nurses during and post-enslavement. That's why the worst of racist white males reason that the supposed natural besmirchment and lack of innocence in brown skin made brown women less allowed, that is, not allowed, to deny them in any way, but not any less of the sex and species that they wish to abuse and subdue sexually. Most African Americans have European ancestry because of this male pattern, specifically in this case, this white male pattern of sexual violence and inability for black women throughout history to not be objectively viewed as female humans targeted for harm in a rather specific way for women and girls of the world. So the social demand for all women to play demure, regardless of their nature, was and is rooted in misogyny. The oppressor's sex, that's males, never operated in a way that showed that they feel that you're literally less of a female human when you don't comply. They operate as if they feel that female humans are more deserving of specific types of abuses, including dehumanizing treatment, when they don't comply. That is, when they don't act modest and subordinate enough. So black women trying to fight racism and misogyny and misogynoir by either performing or by authentically leaning into socially favored female stereotypes like modesty to counterbalance or push back against unfavorable stereotypes for women of their color, like supposedly natural lasciviousness, sounds like a survival strategy and seems wrong for you to interpret as them attempting to be a woman or convince others that they are literally women. For black women, doing it strategically rather than because it's just how they are naturally or how they prefer to be, it's an attempt to not be treated like the extremely unprotected women that they were and are. Pushing back against misogynistic demands and misogynoiristic stereotypes and targeting isn't a fight to be seen as a woman as much as it's a fight or an attempt to make being a woman a safer experience in a world of irrational, subjugation obsessed, misogynistic, racist, dishonest, selfish, and aggressive / violent / dangerous males.
And we've done that in order to prove ourselves worthy of being acknowledged as women, right?
I really think that when it even has been done, or anything like it has been done, that it's been done to convince racist white people to stop being racist, to stop terrorizing and treating black people with such cruelty. More than this thing of I can show you I'm an adult human female, aka a woman, by acting sweet. I think it's more about making the heinous behavior of whites towards black women and black men stop.
But in order to show how committed we are to it, those women said that they were going to denigrate the women who did not fit that ideal. So they said that they were going to sideline and marginalize. And again, this has happened many times. Many times. So they have said that they're going to sideline the black women who are fat, sexual, outspoken, queer, trans, poor, because those women make the race look bad. We've been doing this, right? So all this stuff okay, let me calm down. All of the stuff that people who embrace certain ideas are talking, these are not new ideas. This is not a new tactic. Now, maybe we have inserted some 2020 language. We are using new modes of communication to spread the message. But ain't no innovations here.
I guess to this I would just say that I don't think that the black people who have disparaged, denigrated is the word you used, but those are like synonyms, or sidelined, you said, fat women or women who are sexual or outspoken or queer or poor, or men who are gender non-conforming, GNC, which you would call trans. I don't think that black people doing that when they've done that in all of history is entirely being done to propel black people into like the strata of white equivalency. I think it's more like they have those prejudices and biases genuinely.
So it turns out that doing all that work doesn't actually better the position of black women in society. That you can be a perfectly feminine mom in chief, hula hooping on the White House front lawn like Michelle Obama, and you will still experience enormous amounts of violence. that you will still be denigrated in public, that you will still be called a man and a monkey, that people will still say that there is nothing that you can do to be feminine, to be womanly, that your motherhood is deficient.
Gosh, this one is so insane to hear again. I really liked Chrissie's rebuttal to it, by the way, in her rebuttal to this video, which is still up, and I guess I'll link it for anyone curious. Okay, so this is insane because you are judging Michelle Obama, who is highly respected, highly successful, living quite a nice life, and was the first lady, will forever be the first lady of the first black mixed president of America. And she's respected by like all the right people, like the people who are nasty to her. I mean, not who cares, because it's very hurtful, it's very damaging. I remember being upset by it back in the day and being irritated by just in general how right-wingers are so nasty. Like they're such a vile type of being, one and the same with the way like racists think that I talked about earlier. They both share this thing, even if they're not racist. I suspect most are. They like delight in being cruel. They like, that's their pastime. They have fun. They have the wiring, the type of brains that seem to like really enjoy being cruel to people, and I don't know, they come off as like hoping for a big S, like, do you think we can get her? Especially when it comes to women, they always attack women with such a harshness. So that is just what they do. They're very mean, cruel, evil, one could say, to like everyone, every left-wing opponent, honestly. And they're very ironically steeped in their identity. Like, I feel like they don't make videos where they don't identify their right-wing identity. They don't leave comments where they don't identify where, right good, left bad. They're like, for people who supposedly hate identity politics. But okay, that's a little bit off topic. So my thing is the obvious that, again, Michelle Obama, she's a very successful woman. Like, even if we're accepting that it was a strategy, that she isn't just naturally that way, she just doesn't like to express in that typical socially feminine way just because she does. Which, I mean, that's part of the femininity movement for black women too, is this ugly thing from all sides, including black women themselves, of like trying to tell black women, you're not fit for, this type of expression, you don't belong here, you're not good enough or something enough to be allowed to express this way. Like, black women will tell women this. That almost seems to be the like subtext of what Kim is saying, even like, don't even bother to like wear your little dresses because white people are still gonna be racist. Like, so what? I mean, it's not a so what, it's hurtful, but also you have to live freely. Like, what is this? You're gonna just be, in clothes you don't really care for. You're not gonna like beautify in the way you want to beautify because white people aren't gonna, or white racists aren't gonna see you as equal. Like, that's not a reason to not do something. That's not a reason to not be the socially feminine woman you want to be. Like, that would be a terrible reason for Michelle Obama to not just be the way she wants to be. And again, going back to, even if it was a strategy, it very much did work. It worked as well as it could possibly have worked for a black woman. Like, she's living quite a nice life. Of course, like, I've never heard an argument for femininity from black women that this will make white people accept you. It's never, from what I've seen, it's never been about that. It's been about enjoying a part of yourself that often the black community discourages or that is just not a normalized thing for girls in the Black community. So this thing of like living in that and enjoying it just as other girls are allowed to enjoy it, that's what it's more about. It's not like, I mean, again, I've never seen, there's so many different types of people. Maybe there is some content creator she saw who's arguing if you behave this way, racism will disappear. But that seems so absurd that I highly doubt it. I doubt it. And especially knowing this was mostly a response to Chrissie, whether she admits that or not. And Chrissie has certainly never said anything about this making you more palatable to white people. It's like, as she says, I believe in her video, it's been a while since I watched that too, but I think she says something like, we're making our own table, or something like that. So I really hate this claim or implied claim that Black women are doing this, like leaning into social femininity to be acceptable, and you're there telling them don't bother because they're still going to be racist. Like, that's terrible argument to discourage having fun with your life and living freely. Terrible argument for terrible example to use Michelle Obama, because it really did work for her if she was doing it as a strategy. And even if she wasn't, like more so if she wasn't, then it's really gross to like tell her, you know, that she shouldn't have done it because it didn't work, or she shouldn't have bothered, you know, with the pretty dresses she wanted to wear because it didn't make white racists less racist. I think I'm like repeating myself here. But yeah, and I want to say too, even the dehumanizing, nasty stuff, the nasty comments, the like even constantly calling Michelle Obama a man, I've always thought, like since way back when, I've always thought, as mean as it is, it's always in a way acknowledging that she isn't a man. It's acknowledging her womanhood, because the reason they do it is to like insult her, to humiliate her. These are again things that give racists and right-wingers life. It like, they love that shit. They love to humiliate people. They love to insult people. They love being the mean boys and girls of the world. You know, that, I don't know, it brings them joy to be racist. I don't know. But yeah, I really think because their whole thing is being, you know, mean, being, you know, their whole thing is taunting you. So whatever you want is what they'll do the opposite. So if she wanted them to call her a man, I think they would just call her a crazy woman with, you know, mental issues, you know? So yeah, I'm just saying, I think it's weirdly an acknowledgement, because again, they're doing it to be mean. They're doing it with the awareness, oh, she's not a man, but she wants us to respect her womanhood, and like, this is a mean way to undermine it. Like, that's the point. But also bad argument. She's so successful. Like, the right people love her, so like, who cares what the racists ever thought.
So that continues to happen to Black women, even Black women who embody the norms of perfect, traditional, ideal femininity, because the behavior is not the problem. The Blackness is the problem.
So my natural response to this is to then ask, so what's your point? Because it is implying that you discourage or are against Black women chasing, you know, social femininity norms, chasing that form of expression, or just being into it authentically. Like, are you saying because white people will never accept you, or more racist white people will never accept you, that you shouldn't, you know, make femininity channels because of the racists? That's, again, terrible argument. Partly because your proposal what I'm assuming is your proposal, what I'm interpreting is your proposal slash solution of bringing men, male people, into the female category, women. How does that solve anything? How is that a solution to racism either? How does, what? Because that's a big part of this argument, is you think that tearing down the barriers for what a woman can be and what a man can be with regards to maleness and femaleness, literally those parts of it, um, is the revolutionary act to change things? What? How? How does including men in the woman category, male people in the woman category of humans, how does that help anyone? How does that dismantle white supremacy? I'm waiting for that argument.
Brittany Cooper said this so brilliantly in our conversation the other day. Y'all, go watch that song. Brittany Cooper, I love her so much. I stan her. She really broke it down. The stereotypes about black women persist because it's not because black women don't or can't perform normative femininity. They exist because there are still so many political uses for constructing us as non-women.
Again, woman is a human-specific category based on biological facts that black women meet, that Asian women meet. There is a criteria to this word. You have to be a female adult human. It's really that simple. And it doesn't matter what crazy racists say. Even socially, I think of all these random videos I've seen of the most uncouth women of all races, but I can think of some specifically with black women, and people don't hesitate to use she. You know, it's not, even if you don't like someone, even if you think they're ugly, whatever, you always can tell a woman is a woman. Well, not always. Some people are truly androgynous, but overwhelmingly, people can identify when a woman is a woman, when a man is a man, even if they hate them, even if they look down on them, even if they want to use them for labor, even if they want to do monstrous things to them. It's still pretty clear the vast majority of the time when a woman is a woman and a man is a man. So black adult human females have only ever been women, whatever language, whatever land they existed in, whatever word there was for adult human females, they've always occupied that existence. Call it whatever. The name is the social construct, but that type of being is not. Black women have always been what we in English call women. They always have been. Black men have never been women. They never have been. You know, men have never been women. They never have been. They never will be. So racism and stereotypes aside, they're irrelevant, because factually speaking, black women have never been non-women, no matter what anyone has said. The fact of their existence has always been as biological female humans. So they've always been women when they were adults.
So while you're doing all of this work to prove yourself feminine and worthy of care and protection, you're trying to fit into a framework that was constructed specifically to keep you out.
You know, I reject that. Black women feeling inclined or interested or curious about new modes of expression they've either never experienced or they've always wanted to experience but felt they couldn't, or that's just like genuinely fun for them and they've always been into it, and they just like to watch the channels for fun, for entertainment, that talk about femininity in the traditional way. There's no real way to gatekeep that And I think it's wrong to say that it doesn't fit you, or it's a framework that was not meant for you. Like, that's not quite true. Everyone, in this, who's been part of being formed, being raised by a Western culture, has been raised to like, or not like, but to normalize as part of their own culture certain things like suits for men, or anyone who wants to wear a suit, and dresses for women, and to just do the thing, have fun in doing the thing of doing the act. I don't know how to say that, of wearing a dress. So like these like social norms for women, of like wearing makeup, of doing your hair up however you want, which again, I encourage cross sexes. I encourage guys who want to do that honestly to do it. I encourage women who'd have no interest in doing that to not do it. But like women, black women doing that for whatever reason, fun, strategy, because it's how they were raised, whatever reason, unless it's like, the only one I'm against is if they're doing it out of obligation and they hate it. Then that's the problem. That's the problem. I guess that's because that's been forced on white women the most. So for them, that would be probably a bigger issue, of the reverse of not wanting to do it and feeling obliged to do it, and then your crew coming in and saying, well, maybe you not wanting to do it means you're not a woman. Okay, but yeah, so I think that you can't, like, it's impossible to say you're not part of the framework. Like, who gets to tell, a woman of any race, specifically a black woman, you can't wear a dress? Who, like, I'm trying to figure out a better way to articulate this. I guess I'm just saying that it's really wrong to say and think and feel that black women wanting to simply wear dresses or do traditionally feminine things is them trying to fit into something that you're, like, you say it, you imply that they're not. Like, I don't understand. If you're not saying that black women, you'll never fit in to that framework, that you'll never fit into femininity, so don't try, then what are you saying? What is the point of that statement? What are, like, I guess I am repeating myself, because I was asking this earlier. What are you saying? If, like, because you got upset earlier in this video where you were saying black women misinterpreted you and saying white femininity is for white women, but that is what you're saying, essentially. Like, if you're discouraging and criticizing women or black women for wanting to do socially feminine things, and you're literally saying, oh, you doing that is you trying to fit in a framework not designed for you, then what? Then that is like saying the, like, very accessible, culturally normal things for Western people, of like a woman wearing a dress, is not for you. It is like you're saying that they could never, and maybe because you are black, we could never really fit in. And I'm wondering, because I feel like you don't really believe that, do you? Because, like, do you know what you're saying? Because what are you saying? Like, is this your attempt to tell black, or was this, I don't know, people change and rethink their views. Was this her, I'm half talking to you directly, Kim, half talking to this teeny audience. Was this an attempt to discourage black women from wearing dresses and being conventionally, or gender conforming, so to speak? Because that's what it sounds like. I also feel like if you really believe that it was designed to keep them out, black women out, then the revolutionary act is to like force their way in, isn't it? Again, I think it's for social femininity is for anyone and everyone if they want it. But then, if we, like going by your ostensible belief, it would be like the revolution would be in black women reclaiming femininity. Yeah, like going where they weren't allowed to before, right? But like even women of like the 60s like presented in the like stereotypical feminine ways and before all throughout all of women's history in this country in America, black women specifically, they always wore the socially feminine costume and the men wore the socially masculine costume. So it's always been there. It's always been forced on them, forced on everyone, but it's been there always and been expected of them always. So yeah.
Not only that, but in the pursuit of that ideal, you are choosing to enact enormous harm to significant numbers of other black women.
Enormous harm is such an insane exaggeration. Like, what are we talking about? Like, women or black women or dark-skinned black women having a space that they've created on this big ass platform of YouTube where so many different types of content creators exist and making this product that truly anyone can consume. It's like even gender non-conforming men can watch any of these femininity channels and take the tips. Like, what? So saying it causes enormous harm because, I don't know, they don't use language that goes out of their way to center different types of women who don't even want to be feminine in the traditional way. Like, who are we talking about? I'm thinking back to the list and, you know, other lists you've given in this video of like quote unquote masculine women, poor women, or, you know, women like that. But like, anyone can watch it and take the tips or leave them or just not watch it. Like, the worst harm that you could maybe feel is maybe you could feel like it hurts your feelings that the content creator didn't name your group, your type of people, I don't know, disabled people or white people. Kim is not arguing for white women feeling excluded, I'm sure, but like men, aka trans women was what she would call them, or gender non-conforming men, watching and not feeling centered, that even if they didn't feel centered, again, they could still watch, they could still learn if they care, or they could just go anywhere else, like anywhere else online. But here comes Kim being entitled, mostly on behalf of certain men, to argue that everything black women create, even if it's literally niche internet stuff, should be for everyone.
There are so many black women who will never be able to perform normative, perfect, idealized femininity. And what happens to those black women? Have we just decided, fuck them? If you can't be skinny and do your makeup perfectly and grow your hair long, have we just decided that they don't deserve care and protection? I think that is disgusting, and it does not have to be that way.
What's actually pretty disgusting here is guilt tripping women, specifically in this case black women, into feeling like they need to live to service everyone else. Like, maybe people uninterested in femininity content shouldn't watch it. And maybe overweight women interested in social femininity can learn from the ones sharing weight loss tips. Maybe disabled women interested in femininity can adapt the tips for their use. You can, I mean, how much can you ask of able-bodied women when it comes to that? They're just talking about what they're interested in. That's what that kind of video is. That's what that genre is. Not including the Abby Shapiro types. But even that, it's so easy to avoid the Abby Shapiro types who do indulge in condemning women unlike her. But she's such a kind of rare breed. Like, I've not encountered anyone like her in the black community. So what is this? What is this guilt tripping? What is this indictment against black women interested in femininity and making that kind of content? Maybe men interested in social femininity can even watch those videos without needing the content creator to center and shout them out by name in every video. Like, what a wildly entitled complaint given the structure and vastness of YouTube. Like, make your own, or find someone who's doing it exactly in the way you want it to be done. There's so much out there. Or just avoid it. Like, it's so easy. Like, cause you listed masculine and queer women, and like the kind of queer and masculine women usually you would be referring to or saying could never fit into this type of pastime or hobby, because that's kind of also what social femininity is. It's like a hobby. It's like a pastime. It's certainly like a fashion style, and if you're not interested in that pastime, fashion sense, whatever, then don't watch it. Like, what is this? You're like chastising women who are interested in a type of expression and make content about it, because not every woman and some men aren't necessarily able to fit in that community. I don't know, I wish, if you're not talking about Chrissie, I wish you had specified, because maybe I could understand you more. But even if we were talking about the extreme, and that is someone more, again, like Abby Shapiro, I would just say ignore her. Don't watch her. Like, this is such a weird and bad argument and complaint to have. Like, you can't just let women interested in this live and make for who they want. You have to like harangue them for not doing it in a specific way, or more, it seems like you're haranguing them for doing it at all. Bizarre.
So make it make sense to me. You are intentionally degrading black women, justifying the enormous amounts of scorn that they get inside of the community and outside of the community in the name of helping black women, when it's not their fault and it's not your fault.
I don't know who she's talking about. I don't know of any black creator who does femininity content who is doing that, who is being nasty to those types of women, or even male identified trans identified males.
Why don't we instead choose to focus on the actual root of the problem? Black womanhood is vast, it is brilliant, it is big enough to hold so many different things. It can hold femininity, it can hold masculinity, it can hold all different types of bodies and sexualities and backgrounds.
I agree with almost everything she said, but no, womanhood, black womanhood, it can't hold men. It's not for men. It's not for trans-identified males. That literally defies what it is to be a woman. And so not all bodies, because I know by that you meant penis-having bodies. No, that's not what a woman can ever be. Like, literally, the definition excludes penis-having people. So no, just no. And not even when they invert it. Sorry, not sorry.
And when we choose to reject those teeny tiny little boxes that, again, we didn't make, that creates space for all of us to be welcomed into the fold. We can all live and thrive. But not only that, then when we say, fuck those boxes are bullshit, then we can stop preoccupying ourselves with the white gaze or the male gaze or the heteropatriarchal gaze. We can stop being reactive mode and we can start living and being.
I guess the thing here is that I don't think, like, the older I've gotten, the more I don't think that sexed slash gendered trends as far as fashion expression is concerned and appeals to the opposite sex are concerned, I don't think they're ever going to go away. You know, as much as I am extremely pro GNC men and women, and very much pro diverse forms of expression for everyone, it's really, I don't know, as I age, it's getting hard to imagine we'd ever be that free from it. And I don't know how much of that is nurture and how just strong the way we were all raised is versus how much of that is the nature of our species too. Maybe even if part of that nature is like the thing of wanting to fit in with your group. So just like even whatever personal fashion sense you would have had if you were, I don't know, thrown in some crazy situation of isolation, it just won't really work if you're raised around other humans, because you're just going to follow whatever their patterns are. That's why women will always, not always, but overwhelmingly strive for long hair. Partly too, that's because I think long hair is considered inherently pretty on a human, period, and women are like tasked and socialized with chasing the pretty forms of expression. So, because I think long hair often prettifies, beautifies male faces too, but it's like women are the ones obliged to chase pretty, so women are the ones who overwhelmingly have long hair. And I look around and I'm on like a train or a bus. It's hard to imagine a world. I mean, I'm definitely going to be part, while I'm alive, of encouraging GNC expression, but kind of what it sounded like Kim was saying is that, you know, we should kill those boxes, which it sounded so similar to how I thought as like a young feminist slash a kid when I was like first GNC when I was like 5. I have a distinct memory from kindergarten when I was 5, where I was like, you know, anyone can wear a dress, like. So I've been GNC since I was 5, and it, like, the way she was talking was better, you know, more articulate than 5-year-old me, but it reminded me of how I thought of, we need to smash these boxes, and I still think we should in the right way, but it's such an uphill battle. People are just, it's so hard to undo it. Like, I'm watching I'm really going on a tangent here, but I'm watching the little ones in my family, I'll say, and it's just like, even when you're trying to not put gender conformity on them, it's like impossible. They learn it everywhere. It's in every movie, how a girl is supposed to look, how a boy is supposed to look. It's hard to even defy like social norms, you know, because it's so all around everyone all the time. So by the time you're like, it seems like by the time you're like as young as maybe 3, it's pretty hard pressed in there of what's normal for boys and what's normal for girls to wear. But anyway, that was kind of off topic. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how easy that's gonna be, her dream there. Also, something crucial that I forgot to mention is that trans ideology, which she subscribes to, is perhaps the biggest contributor to those woman those rigid woman boxes and man boxes that she's supposedly trying to smash. I've never seen anything like this in my lifetime, and from observing the past, it's never been this intense, quite this intense, since like the 60s of these rigid ideas about how each category should express. Like, you've got now girls who are like even slightly not Barbie like, questioning their category, questioning their girlness. It's like the worst it's ever been. So I don't see how she thinks that trans ideology is helping this sexism problem, this sexist categorizing problem. It's worsening it. It's worsened it.
And by the way, look, it's so weird to me. Something that's so weird to me is I like lots of traditionally feminine shit. I love a dress. Up until, I don't know, about a year ago, I wore heels all the time. I was, heartbroken about not being able to get my hair done. So obviously, there are things about traditional femininity that I like and embrace. Do your femininity any way you want to do it. That's up to you. But my primary issue is with people who choose to be very traditionally feminine, but then want to take on the role of gender cop. They want to tell us who is and who ain't and who can come in and who we have to keep out. Mind your business. Don't you have something else to do? We have more important problems. And you worrying about women who ain't doing shit to you. They are not the reason you're uncared for. Those women are not the reason you're unprotected. You are focusing all of that energy and that ire at people who are suffering from the same shit that you're suffering from. For what? Why? What are you getting out of that? It is wholly counterproductive. Someone else's freedom should not be a threat to you. And if it is a threat to you, you really need to think of why. What are you trying to maintain?
So all of that was essentially Kim being very upset at women who have boundaries and won't agree that men can be women. So I'm gonna just go over her points in order. So she says her issue is with women playing gender cop and with women trying to argue that female people shouldn't be forced to share certain spaces with male people. But women have every right and even something of a duty to every girl being born into this mess to police who's allowed to be in female spaces for safety reasons alone. Women should absolutely be allowed to be gender cops, as you call it, if it means women having a say in men going into their spaces. Is crazy. Like, you're actually telling women that it's not their business, like, to not worry their pretty little heads, their pretty little evil bigoted heads about the man in their restroom. Insane. You're like telling women to ignore their instincts if they see a man enter the place where they undress and are vulnerable. Like, I disagree strongly. Women should always be allowed to advocate for female people, for women and girls. The female instinct to be wary of males, especially strange males, is a logical one. Of course it's their business when they or their daughters or their nieces or sisters or whoever is female in their life and they care about has to share space with the opposite sex. Like, of course. And of course it's their business when they have to compete in sports against the opposite sex. And of course it would be their business if they're jailed and have to be in the same jail as criminals of the opposite sex. Sometimes sexually violent criminals, sexually violent male criminals sharing space with females, their target potentially. Like, what are you talking about? Mind your business. Women's safety and sports being compromised is women's business. As for when you said that there are more important problems, I mean, no. Women losing their sex spaces is at least one of the most important problems for Western women right now. So it's very reasonable to focus on it. And also, people can focus on more than one thing at a time. So then you say that what you would call trans women and what I call gender nonconforming men suffer the same shit as women. And they don't. They don't. Like the ancient obsession with the status of girls' and women's hymens that gets justified even now when a famous rapper father admits to just how abusive he's willing to be because of that irrational, dehumanizing, and objectifying obsession. That isn't something that GNC men suffer from too, right? Or being shamed for single motherhood or having kids out of wedlock. That isn't something that GNC men suffer from. Being shamed for getting an abortion or for requesting financial support for their children when they don't have an abortion. That isn't something that GNC men suffer from. Or being shamed for their postpartum bodies. That's not something that GNC men suffer from. Or being shamed for approaching 40 with no kids. As I've recently seen a YouTuber, I think she's called Steph Co, experience. That's a pretty uniquely female thing. That's not something that GNC men suffer from either. Like, there are things that the two have in common. There's allyship to be had, there's friendship to be had, there are certain experiences that they definitely share and can bond over. There are even some unique struggles that GNC men go through that women don't. And I know for sure that there are definitely war stories to swap, especially ones about dealing with gender conforming men, as I have with gay male friends. But that doesn't mean that the two go through the same shit or even the same oppressions. So erasing female specific pains and struggles and traumas faced by women to uphold this unspoken rule of never letting men who identify as trans women be reminded of their maleness so as not to hurt their feelings is extremely disrespectful to women and girls. It's also, sorry to say, but it's very delusional and objectively false. Then you asked, what are women getting out of it? And the answer to that is a lot of fucking hate. They get vilified and villainized and sometimes even physically assaulted by men at protests and sometimes beaten up by trans-identifying male classmates upset at that one girl not ditching her belief that girl is an English word for female children to instead adopt his belief rooted in his sexist neo-religion that implicitly says that girl is actually a word for males and females who prefer socially feminine expression or, feel a feminine spirit inside. Women also get fired from their jobs and bullied and doxxed and threatened and called misogynistic slurs by misogynist lefty bros who barely get challenged or criticized for it. Certainly not the way an openly racist or homophobic lefty bro would. Can you imagine, what's that one guy's name? Rob Cahill or something from iZombie? He's just openly misogynistic or a Vosh type. If they just were openly racist to Dave Chappelle and defending using racial slurs against him because he sided with J.K. Rowling or Rowling, it would be canceled properly. They would be officially, properly, fully canceled. But they get to do it to women because, again, as I said earlier, misogynistic slurs, misogyny, it's just a subconscious norm. Like, there's a certain amount of disrespect that's just tolerated against women on all sides. So, they know who to pick on. They know who they can get away with disrespecting. And you can't do that with men. So racism is off the table because that affects men. You can't do that with homophobic slurs because that involves men. So they wouldn't do that. But you can always target and bully and harass women, and women will join you. Women will use the misogynistic slurs with you, will give you a pass, say those evil, ugly C words, and TERFs can all die, because there's just not great loyalty within the women side of things. But yeah, speaking of rallying, women also get alienated from all they once loved when they're on this side, and when they're famous authors like her, they get forcibly divorced from their own beautiful work, all for what? For saying that woman is the word for adult human females, and pointing out that girls who don't feel interested in social femininity or expressing that way, starting to feel that this lack of connection to social feminine stereotypes is enough to make them doubt their very status as girls, is actually bad and born of something that is the opposite of freedom, like TRAs try to reframe it. It's actually something more like internalized sexism run amok, but she's not allowed to say that. That's the thing that got her so vilified. We can't even talk about the bad reasons that people can identify as trans. Right now, nothing good comes from being on this side. So usually when women and lefty men are on this side, it's not because they get mainstream favor and applause like you, Kim. It's because they know that it's the right side to be on, and they actually care about women and girls and keeping them safe, well, as safe as possible, and keeping women's hard-won and hard-fought rights intact. Hopefully, in the end of all of this, what they get, or what we get, is to preserve women and girls' spaces and finally convince trans-identified females and trans-identified males to fight sexism in healthy ways that don't involve harming their bodies, or at least, if they can't fight that feeling, if they truly can only be happy that way, at least convincing them to create their own categories and their own spaces as women once did. Like, that's a fight I'd join. Like, when you and TRAs and people on your side think about how we have men and women's restrooms, what is your understanding of why we have them? Have you always felt that sex segregation was unnecessary, or do you understand intuitively why it is? Do you feel that all restrooms and changing rooms should have always been unisex? If not, when you think of the reason why women and girls would need separate spaces away from males at times, how do you not understand why women and girls would still need separate spaces even from males who wish they were women? How can you not, at a minimum, acknowledge the sex differences between these two types of humans? Why do you feel that a male person identifying as a female person neutralizes him as a potential threat or a perv? Plenty of trans-identified males have committed heinous acts of violence that follow male violence patterns. Laverne Cox even advocated for one, a trans-identified male, trying to get transferred into a woman's prison after he R-worded and murdered a 13-year-old girl. So pretending that males no longer pose a threat if they just identify as women is so insane. It doesn't make any sense. Like, what is the basis in your belief that trans-identified males and women are equally harmless or equally threatening. There isn't one. You just don't want to hurt male feelings by lumping them in with their actual sex category and reminding them in turn that they are not the same sex as you. Because, as I said in the intro, the demand and primary rule of most trans-identified people seems to be that everyone, especially women, need to prioritize helping them forget what sex they were born and what sex they actually are when engaging with them or discussing them. Then you say that it's counterproductive for women to be concerned with keeping men out of women's categories and spaces, which again is insane. What's obviously counterproductive here to progress and to feminism is actually encouraging men who don't feel that they live up to masculine stereotypes to now go and place themselves in the woman's category because of this. And then you say that if women feel threatened, and this is crazy because this is supposed to be an intelligent person. You say at the end of this clip that if women feel threatened by men, male people, they have to ask themselves why. Are you kidding? You're not aware of male violence patterns? You're not aware of what a huge issue male violence is in our world? You're not aware of male perversion patterns either, or things like their Rule 34, Google it. You're not aware of trans-identified males who masturbate in women's restrooms and post those pics on Twitter. You're not aware of how males dominate in upskirting and creep shots and spy cam crimes and discussing their varied methods of procuring spank bank material. And by the way, that's basically when they chase scenarios and create scenarios in real life to be able to create memories that that they can masturbate to later. It's not all male people, but we don't take precautions like locking our doors because everyone is a thief. We don't tell girls to mind their beverages when they're out because every guy would try to drug them. The precautions we take in life are for things with a reasonable potential to happen. And outside of that type of threat, you're not aware that the average man is around like 40% stronger than the average woman and possesses around like 30 pounds of skeletal muscle, so has a significant strength advantage in life that made female-only categories in sports necessary in the first place. You're not aware of how a male being able to compete against a female threatens her ability to thrive in her sport and ups her risk of serious injury, like Fallon Fox's opponent Tamika Brents experienced when fighting him. He fractured her skull. What is wrong with you? Like, what is wrong with women like you? I don't understand. What is in your brain where it's like you just, even though you're on the left, you still mirror this habit of right-wing women to betray your sex and like live in service to males or prioritize serving the opposite sex, so males. You think that because it's GNC males who wish to be women that it's different, but it's really not. It's like suit or dress, like whatever the costume, most women always manage to center males somehow. It's like no matter what side women go to, there's this deeply rooted thing that makes them just fold and fight so passionately for men when men complain or make demands or resort to emotional manipulation. It seems so hard for women to empathize with women over men when male and female needs are in conflict. Like lib fem, conservative, it's two sides of the same male-worshipping coin.
I hope that we are slowly and surely creating a world where we all have the freedom to choose. Because some Black women are soft. I consider myself to be, I'm very emotional, girl. I cry at the drop of a hat. I am soft. I'm emotionally very fragile. I have experienced several times throughout my upbringing where I felt like there was not space for me to be soft Kimberly. We should have space for that. But we should also have space for women who present as masculine of center. We should also have space for Black women who want to be fighters, who want to be warriors. We should have space for Black women who want to lay on the couch all day and be taken care of. I'm not, into the capitalism shit, but if you want to buy your luxury shit, like, do that. I just buy luxury cars, so I can't really be saying shit, right?
Okay, but then you complaining about a few channels on big ass YouTube making femininity content for Black women, it's even more perplexing. Like, those spaces exist, or people can make them if they're that interested. There are prominent people in every community who have popularity on YouTube, have some level of popularity on YouTube. So if they could make those spaces if they don't exist, and I bet you they do exist. Like, I'm finding new communities on YouTube all the time. Like creep show art, that's a weird community. But yeah, so what you're like saying, everyone should have spaces, everyone should be able to make their space, but your whole argument here is that, like, you're upset that women, Black women, dark-skinned Black women, a handful of them had their own spaces for their group or each other. Like, it doesn't make sense. Your criticism and this video as a whole, it doesn't make sense if you accept that multiple spaces can exist.
Right? Do what makes you happy. Do what makes you feel content and fulfilled. But I think that our goals should be balance. It should be equity. It should be justice and fairness. It does not have to be about exclusion. It does not have to be about judgment. Because we've been trying to do that. It don't work. All this gatekeeping is so counterproductive.
Gatekeeping female spaces is reasonable. It will always be reasonable. You're not even really against gatekeeping because you're okay with a space for men and a space for women that are separate spaces, right? You're just upset when it's males being gate kept out of female spaces, which is absurd. That's what the whole structure has been for so long, and it's a logical structure. So, and then you said also it's like it doesn't work. We've been doing this for so long, it doesn't work. And that's just such a weird argument, because there's a lot of stuff we've been hacking away at and trying to do as a country, as a community, for so long, and every kind of ism still very much exists in large numbers. I mean, it's better. I do think of Michelle Obama, and something I wanted to say, I forgot to say, is there's a real glass half full situation with her that she makes me realize is, like, for all the flaws of America and the world, we have obviously progressed where, the meanies can be mean. They can, the old-fashioned, for lack of a better term, because I don't like this term, but slut-shamers can slut-shame, and yet a Kim Kardashian can still thrive, and there's a lot of flaws with the way she's thrived and how she's thrived and what she pushes, but I did always appreciate that one part of where, she isn't relegated to this sex fiend because of how she kind of got famous. And also, Michelle Obama, she may be treated cruelly, But, they didn't stop her. They didn't impact the success she's been allowed to amass, and the love she gets. So it's like, yeah, those vile people still exist. The people who call, Kim K every slur, misogynistic slur imaginable. Yes, the people who call uh, Michelle Obama every racist slur imaginable. Yes, and try to humiliate Michelle Obama. Yes, they exist. But she was still able to thrive because of how much better things are than they once were, which is nice, silver lining kind of thing. So yeah, that's why we keep doing a lot of the things we keep doing, because they work very, very slowly, but they do kind of work. Usually that seems to be the pattern of things getting a little better. Recently it's felt like we've been sliding backwards in a lot of ways though. So I don't know. I don't know how it all ends.
So I'll say that yeah, there are certainly, I tweeted this the other day, that I have been doing this for a long time. And I have accepted that there are a number of Black women that I'm simply not going to be in community with, right? I don't want to engage with you. I don't want to support ya. I'm not going to give you money, right? But that doesn't mean that I don't want you to thrive. That doesn't mean that I don't want you to live freely and be safe and happy and healthy. I don't want you to experience any violence, the kind of violence that people have wished on me over the past 3 days. I don't want that. Wish me ill, but I wish you well. Cause I don't have to be I'm good, right? Kimberly doesn't get anything out of hoping that you stumble and fall. It doesn't work for me. So we can deeply disagree and go our separate ways. And I know how rare it is for Black women to experience true contentment, true peace. And I hope that we can all get there.
Okay, well, I don't really have anything to say to any of that. And the point that I cut it off at, there's more after it, but it's just like outro stuff. And this video is already so much longer than I hoped it would be. Ugh. So yeah, so I'm just gonna leave it, or not show it. It's not necessary. No more arguments. So thank you for watching, and okay, one thing I will say is I did always have this dream of like all women joining forces and being this big broad community together, but I mean, I've just learned there's just way too many like pick me type of women. There's way too many like traitorous women for that to work. I mean, I still hope it deeply, but it's like a child's dream, literally like child me's dream, because I had such a sisterhood filled childhood, and then grew up to the harsh reality of adulthood, and it's like not like that. But yeah, so yeah, I guess that's all I wanted to say. Or I guess the point of that was just it was a little disappointing to hear her say that, but even on this side, it's true. There's women that even I think both of us would not be able to, as she puts it, be in community with, because they're just too anti-woman. There's so many female misogynists, like pretty much every woman who's like a right-winger, at least the loudest mouthpieces. Yeah, so okay, alright, thanks for watching, bye.